Hey guys, lesson 21. We're 2 lessons away from the end of topic D. Topic D was all about the contextual situation, the things that you need to consider in solving word problems or real life situations. We've talked about exponential functions, we've talked about rate of change, we've talked about linear situations, and this one really is about more of just a general idea of how a domain, a range, a key feature of a function can show up in some sort of context. Let's go to the intro task and do it together. Circle which numbers represent integers. An integer is a number that is a whole number, not a fraction, not an irrational, so only the things that are whole values, positives, negatives, zeros, like 5, -3, 0, -10. All of those are integers. There are 2 more, and you figure out the other 2. Moving on. The graph below represents the total amount of money earned to deliver canvas prints to sell at the local art store. So to identify the independent variable and dependent variable, again, in context, review, I hope, for some extent. The independent variable is the x-axis. It's the number that we always will put along the horizontal. And so if we label this graph x and y, we should identify the variable for the x-axis as independent. Would be the number of canvas prints. We should probably use a letter, but I guess because it is, well, yeah, I'm gonna use a letter and then I'm gonna write the actual, like, what that letter represents. So N, the number of canvas prints. And that also means that our dependent variable, which is the other thing, so if x is independent, then y is dependent, the total cost depends on the number of canvas prints that you purchased. So total cost, C for cost, dependent, the total cost depends on the number of prints that are given to you. Describe several values that represent the number of canvas prints. So we won't want to suggest something that's negative. We also want to think about how the number of canvas prints is drawn on an L graph. So it's all the positive x values, all the positive y values. And so therefore, I don't know, that could be 2. Like you could have 2 canvas prints. And of course, we could be estimating it would cost you somewhere around $80. I guess I said 80 because 200, 100, that's a little less than 100. Another possible number for the number of canvas prints is 10 or 24 or 35. Those are values that we can see. The graph does stop, like it doesn't look like it continues after 35, and I kind of can believe that or trust that. The graph also starts at 0. I can trust that those 2 numbers bookend the values. One comment that I might make here in addition, but I see that there's graph space around the line, so it's not like the line reached the end of the window and then stopped. No, it's gone up to that value and that's it. Now, if you think about one other thing, can you buy 2.5 canvases? I'm talking like a painting, a thing that you would hang on your wall. You're not going to hang 1/2 of a painting. It's still technically a painting, or it's broken, so you wouldn't buy it. So to say that you're going to buy 2.5 canvas prints doesn't really equate to a true statement. That might not be where 2.5 is located. But the point is that you're not going to call it that way. So this line is an illusion. It's actually dots, specific dots at 0, at 1, at 2, at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, etc. The line, my line's purple, your line is gray, but the line that goes through those dots doesn't technically exist because when we talk about domain, 2, 5, 10, integer values are the domain. They're the number of possible canvas prints. So we could say all integers between, sure, that looks like the word between, 0 and, 35. So a number like a fraction, not a part of the domain, because you're not going to have an integer means not a fraction. An integer, a fraction is made of integers, but integers are the only possible numbers that you can choose for this situation. Belabor the point. The graph below represents the height of an object after it's thrown in the air. So in identifying the independent variable, I'm just going to label it like on the graph. Independent x and dependent y. So independent and dependent. For the situation. Cool, that's all. Example 3. Alita is working on a summer job. She gets paid time and a half, which is $16.50 for every hour she works beyond the 40 hours. And she only gets paid $11 per hour up for the first 40 hours. Typical situation, minimum wage is probably higher than that by now. But the point is that to describe the independent variable, remember, what are we considering? And we should look for the rate of change. So the rate of change being $6.50 an hour or $11 per hour. The quantities that we're studying, remember the previous lesson that we talked about with units of measurement. We're talking about money and time. In that dollars per hour is the money and the time. And the independent variable, time. Most of the time, time is the independent variable. So specifically in this situation, it's hours. The dependent variable is the other quantity. So if time is specified to be the independent, then we would say, I don't want to say just money, I want to say like paid, payment, brain broke. Oh my god, dollars, earnings, wages, there we go, wages. Let's go with that one. Hey, it's not on the thing, had to search for the word for a little bit. Which variable would represent the domain of the function? Remember, domain is x, independent is x. Transitive property says that. Hours, that is not even the word. That's almost the word house. Go away, you. Hours. There we go. If x equals 14, remember, x is the independent. X is in the domain. So what does this value represent for the problem? It means that Alita worked 14 hours. Okay. Just a little aside, if I'm working through the problem and you're being like, I know the answer to this, then go ahead and just skip. Just skip in the video until you can see like this, and then pause. Don't have to listen to me. You can just pause, right, skip to the next one. Okay, which variable represents the range? Well, if time in hours is independent, and that's the domain, then the other variable is dependent, and that's the range, and that would be her wages. And so, therefore, if y equals 44, y is dependent, it's the range. And so, if y equals 44, then that means that she earned $44, Alita's wages. Is wages plural or singular? Wage, wages. I'll make it sound like it should, but I'm debating that. Like sometimes it looks like it's a plural word. Anyway, whatever. We're $44 for the week. Okay. Interpreting, putting into context. The key thing behind this lesson, and behind most of the topic D material, is that you need to like have a sentence, some sort of equation that, or some sort of sentence that describes what's happening in your scenario. Okay. Joe had a summer job. This is exactly like the previous one. You do it. Extra practice. Although I really like this one. And so maybe just a brief commentary. I'll try to set you up for success by saying this. Remember, it's x and y. So in that ordered pair, if you properly defined what x is, and then you properly defined what y is from earlier in the problem, then x being 20, put that into a sentence and say something like, when x equals 20, which represents some scenario, then y equals 40, which represents some other thing. Hector's service, canceled. Okay. Hector's Service Club is raising money by wrapping presents by wrapping presents in the mall. The function f of x equals 3x describes the amount of money in dollars the club will earn for wrapping x presents. They only have enough wrapping paper to wrap 1,000 presents, so repeat the process, and remember what I just kind of commented about 70 and 210. Of course, extra practice. Okay, lesson 21, day 1. Finish the closing. Make sure that you have properly determined I can identify independent, dependent from a graph that was there, from a situation, from within a context, so the sentence structure of it. Rate yourself and how could you improve. And then please answer the exit ticket, and on the next page, problem set for extra homework. I'm gonna go ahead and pause the video, or I'm gonna go ahead and end this video, and then that'll be day 1, and play the next video for day 2. Like and subscribe.